When you think of borders, you probably imagine clean lines on a map. But the truth, borders are messy, illogical, and sometimes completely insane. What if I told you there's an American island where Russia is just a stone's throw away? Or a US neighborhood so isolated the only way in is through another country? These aren't conspiracy theories or urban legends. They're real places. And what you're about to discover will change the way you see the map forever. These are 25 insane US border geography facts you've never heard before. Let's start at the edge of the world. Part 25. The island where you can walk from the US to Russia. In one of the most remote corners on the planet where the Arctic winds slice through silence, two islands sit face to face. Little Diomede, American. Big Diomede, Russian. Just 2.5 miles apart. What separates them isn't just water, it's time. Big Diomede is almost an entire day ahead of its neighbor, and they call it Tomorrow Island. But here's where it gets crazy. Every winter, the sea between them freezes solid, and suddenly you can walk across it, meaning, you can literally walk from the US to Russia. It's illegal and it's dangerous, but it is physically possible, and it makes this icy corner of the world one of the strangest border zones on Earth. But not all strange borders lie in the frozen north. Some are hiding in plain sight, isolated by bureaucracy, not nature. Part 24. The hidden US town trapped inside Canada. Just south of Vancouver, nestled at the tip of a Canadian peninsula, lies a town that looks like it should be in Canada. But it's not. It's American. Welcome to Point Roberts, Washington, a town created entirely by a border drawing accident. When the US-Canada boundary was set at the 49th parallel, it sliced off this tiny corner of land, stranding it from the rest of America. To get to Point Roberts from the mainland US, you gotta cross into Canada, then exit back into the US. In other words, to reach America, you gotta leave America first. That means grocery runs, emergency services, even ordering a pizza all depend on crossing an international border twice. It's not an island, not a peninsula. It's a cartographic loophole. And sometimes the line isn't between towns. It runs right through someone's home. Part 23. The building that lives in two countries. At first glance, it looks like any other charming historic library. But once inside, you realize something surreal. You're suddenly walking across an international border. This is the Haskell Free Library and Opera House, a building that straddles the US-Canada line. One side is in Vermont, the other in Quebec. Sit in the reading room and you're in America. Walk a few steps to the bookshelf, now you're in Canada. There's even a painted black line across the floor, a reminder that, yes, you just crossed a national boundary. No border patrol and no fences, just quiet pages turning across two nations. This border wasn't built to divide people, it was built to bring them together, a rare monument to a time when maps didn't split neighbors. But while the Derby line quietly shares buildings, just down the street, there are kids who don't need a passport to travel internationally. They just need to catch the school bus. Part 22. The school bus that crosses two countries every day. For some kids in Derby Line, Vermont, going to school isn't just a morning routine. It's an international journey. Every weekday, these students leave their home in the US, cross the border into Canada, drive through the Quebec countryside, then cross back into the US, and finally arrive at school. That's two countries, 4 border checks, and a routine where customs officers know the kids by name. The reason? It's because the fastest road to school isn't American. It runs through Canada. It's a real-life reminder that borders may look simple on maps, but out here, they're just lines, and life doesn't always follow them. But it's not just kids commuting across borders. In one town, even a weekend round of golf turns into a cross-border affair. Part 21. A golf course where your swing crosses a border. In the peaceful town of Stansted, Quebec, there's a golf course that turns every tee shot into a diplomatic mission. You line up your shot in Canada, take your swing, and watch your ball soar into another country, Vermont, USA. The Haskell Golf Course straddles the US-Canada border, where one hole starts in one country and ends in another, making your golf ball a tiny white international traveler. It's casual, and it's really weird. And yes, technically, your game crosses two legal jurisdictions. But sometimes, crossing a border isn't as simple as swinging a club or riding a bus. Most people never hear about this next one. Part 20. The border crossing that only exists in winter. Tucked into the far reaches of Minnesota, there's a place called the Northwest Angle, a strange geographical glitch, cut off from the rest of the US by Canadian land and water. In summer, you got two options to reach it. Take a boat across Lake of the Woods, or drive through Canada, crossing two international borders just to reach American soil. But when winter hits, something remarkable happens. The lake freezes solid, and locals carve out an ice road, a temporary frozen highway across the lake. And suddenly, there's a direct American route to this isolated tip of Minnesota. No passports, no customs, just miles of silence and cracking beneath your tires as you glide across frozen international borders. For a few months each year, it becomes one of the only seasonal international crossings on Earth. But while this frozen lake becomes a passport-free path home, down south, there's a place where crossing that line isn't just difficult, it's impossible. Part 19. A prison where inmates can see another country. Just outside El Paso, Texas, sits the Federal Correctional Institution of La Tuna, a prison located within feet of the US-Mexico border. From the yard, inmates can literally see another country, Juarez, Mexico, sprawled out in the distance, separated only by a fence and a stretch of desert. On one side, barbed wire, guards, and lockdowns. On the other, freedom. Close enough to see, but too far to touch. It's not just symbolic, it's a logistical headache. Security is tighter. Patrols are constant. Because here, the border isn't an abstract line on a map. It's a reality you stare at every single day. Few places in America offer such a haunting contrast, where freedom isn't just taken away, it's taunting you through the fence. From a prison yard where freedom teases from across the border, to an Arctic outpost where America quietly watches the world. Part 18. Greenland and the Forgotten American Base. In the frozen wilderness of northern Greenland lies a place few Americans know exists, Thule Air Base, an American military outpost sitting on foreign soil. It's technically on Danish territory, but it operates under US control as part of a Cold War-era agreement. This means American soldiers live, work, and operate within another country, thousands of miles from home, on a base so remote polar bears outnumber people. From this strategic point, the US monitors satellites, missile activity, and even outer space. And while it's not a border in the traditional sense, it represents a quiet extension of US power, reaching across the Arctic and brushing against Russia's geopolitical backyard. From a remote Arctic base on foreign soil to one of the most iconic symbols of America planted in the wrong state. Some borders aren't drawn by geography, but by controversy. Part 17. The Statue of Liberty should be in New Jersey, not New York. To the world, she's a symbol of New York, but on the maps, she belongs to New Jersey. Yeah, Liberty Island, home of the iconic Statue of Liberty, actually sits within New Jersey waters. A centuries-old dispute over jurisdiction created a bizarre compromise. New York would manage the island, but New Jersey would own the ground beneath it. So while tourists think they're stepping onto New York soil, they're technically really visiting a Jersey girl. Even today, legal documents, ferry routes, and tax records are tangled in this strange bi-state custody battle, all over one of America's most famous landmarks. While some border battles drag on for centuries, others aren't decided by politics, but by the river itself. Part 16. The town America gave back to Mexico on purpose. The town of Rio Rico, Texas wasn't always American. In fact, it was never supposed to be. In 1906, the Rio Grande shifted, not naturally, but due to a man-made channel diversion, accidentally leaving a chunk of Mexico on the US side. For decades, the mistake lingered in limbo. People lived there, raised families, built homes, all technically on the wrong side of the line. Then in 1970, something rare happened. The US government gave it back. In a peaceful agreement with Mexico, the land was officially returned, making it one of the only known non-violent land reversals in US history. No shots fired, no political chaos, just paperwork and an agreement to do what was right. Sometimes America gives land back. Other times, it tries to buy more. Part 15. The US once tried to buy Greenland twice. In one of history's most unexpected real estate plays, the US has tried to buy Greenland not once, but twice. The first attempt came in 1946, when the US government offered $100 million in gold to Denmark for the icy island. Why? Well, because of its strategic location, right between North America and Europe, making it a key Cold War outpost and a geographic bridge across the Arctic. Denmark declined the offer. Decades later, in 2019, the idea resurfaced during diplomatic discussions. It made headlines and sparked debate. Some laughed, but others took it seriously. But geopolitically, it was not a joke. The US already maintains a powerful military presence there. Why does it matter? Because Greenland isn't just a frozen wasteland, it's a floating fortress at the edge of the American sphere of influence. No deal was ever made, but the message was clear. America's borders aren't just defended by force. Some are pursued through negotiation. And sometimes the most fascinating US border isn't a line on a map. They're a quiet presence on someone else's land. Part 14. The border towns split by time itself. Imagine waking up, crossing the street to visit your neighbor, and stepping into a different time. This isn't sci-fi. It's everyday life for border towns like West Wendover, Nevada, and Wendover, Utah. Though they share a sidewalk, one town is an hour ahead of the other. Why? Because one is in the Mountain Time Zone and the other follows Pacific Time, by choice, not by law. That means businesses, schools, and even gas stations operate in parallel timelines. A dentist appointment across the road? You better double-check which clock it's running on. Here, time isn't just relative, it's confusing. If time can split a town, imagine a border that existed before the country it defines. Part 13. The US-Canada border is older than America itself. Most people assume the US border was created after the country was fully formed. But here's the twist. The border was created in 1783, 4 years before the US Constitution was ever written. Yeah, America didn't have a president, a Bill of Rights, or even a clear identity, but it already had a border. It was drawn in the Treaty of Paris, the same deal that ended the Revolutionary War. So before America figured out how to govern itself, it had already started defining where it ended. Some borders were drawn with treaties, others were drawn through people's homes. Part 12. The Mexican neighborhood that spills into the US. In the borderlands of Tijuana, there's a neighborhood called Colonia Libertad, and it lives on the edge of two worlds. It's undeniably Mexican, culturally, legally, and economically. But over decades, as homes were built, roads extended, and boundaries blurred, the neighborhood quietly crept over the US border. Parts of Colonia Libertad exist just inches from US territory, with homes and shops practically pressed against the border fence. Today, Border Patrol has fenced it, marked it, and surveilled it. But the people? They've lived, worked, and raised families here for generations, long before steel barriers and no-man zones. Here, the border isn't just a line, it's a contradiction. A place where national identity collides with lived reality. And it makes you wonder, What happens when a town grows faster than the bureaucracy meant to contain it? You're about to find out. Part 11. There's an entire town built because of a border mistake. International Falls, Minnesota wasn't supposed to be in the United States, at least not according to the original border plan. Back in the 1800s, surveyors were sent to map the US-Canada boundary, accidentally following the wrong river channel. But by the time the error was discovered, it was too late. A town had formed, homes were built, commerce grew. Rather than dismantle everything, officials shrugged and accepted the mistake. And just like that, a Canadian town became permanently American. Today, International Falls still stands not just as a border city, but as proof that a single surveying error can shape generations. But while one border town was claimed by mistake, another became the epicenter of deliberate daily movement on a scale the world has never seen. Part 10. The US-Mexico border is the most crossed international border in the world. You've heard of borders, lines drawn in the sand, fences, walls. But this one, it's different. The US-Mexico border sees more movement than any other in the world. Over 350 million crossings every year. It's not just about immigration. It's commuters, workers, students, shoppers, families. Some cross twice a day like it's nothing. At its busiest point, it's chaos. At its quietest, silence, dust, desert. It's not just a border, it's the busiest human gateway on the planet. And while millions cross it every year, few ever notice the markers that quietly hold it all together. Part 9. Border markers have to be maintained by treaty. Most people think borders are set in stone, but the US-Canada border, it needs constant maintenance by international treaty. Over 8,000 border markers stretch from coast to coast, with each marker being legally protected and meticulously maintained by both nations. If nature swallows a marker, they cut a path through the forest. If a river shifts, they remeasure, realign, and redefine. And there's the border vista, a 6-meter wide strip of land cleared through forests, fields, and mountains. No trees and no buildings. It's the longest undefended border in the world, but also one of the most carefully managed. While the eastern border is carefully trimmed through forest and farmland, the boundaries out west take on a different form, not through trees or mountains, but across endless water. Part 8. US border markers go deep into the ocean. Not all borders are fences. Some are just coordinates out in the ocean. Off the coast of California, Texas, and Florida, the US shares maritime borders. Invisible lines stretching across the sea. There aren't any walls or fences, just buoys, satellites, and international agreements. Yet these watery borders are just as real, defining who can fish, drill, or sail. It's a reminder, even out at sea, the boundaries still matter. You just need GPS to see them. Some borders fade into the ocean. Others rise above frozen ground, like a towering white dome in Alaska, built to watch the world's most powerful adversary. Part 7. The giant spy dome that watches Russia from Alaska. Just outside the remote town of Clear, Alaska, a strange white sphere rises out of the forest. It's huge, quiet, almost alien-looking. But it's not a weather station. It's a Cold War relic. This is part of the ballistic missile early warning system, built to scan the skies for incoming threats from Siberia and beyond. For decades, it's been watching the skies, scanning for nuclear threats, listening for what no one dares to speak aloud. Even today, long after the fall of the Soviet Union, this dome still turns. Because here, the Alaskan border isn't just wilderness, it's a front line. But not all borders were born of conflict. Some were shaped by isolation, even inside the US itself. Part 6. The airport where the runway crosses two countries. In Minnesota, near the town of Pine Creek, lies one of the strangest airstrips in North America, the Piney Pine Creek Border Airport. It's a tiny rural airport with one big twist. the runway crosses the US-Canada border. Land on one end, and you're in the United States. Touchdown a few seconds later, and your wheels are hitting Canadian soil. Here, even small aircraft have to file international flight plans just to use the full runway. 2 flags fly over the control shack, and pilots often have to radio both border authorities before takeoff. It's part airstrip, part geopolitical oddity, where every landing is also a border crossing. And while some regions coordinate across boundaries, others have been split by invisible lines that fracture families, towns, and histories still fresh in memory. Part 5. The park where families meet through a fence. Along the US-Mexico border near San Diego and Tijuana, there's a place called Friendship Park, one of the few official locations where people on both sides of the border can meet face-to-face. The park is split by a tall steel fence, with one side in the United States and the other in Mexico. For limited hours on certain weekends, access is granted so that visitors can speak through the fence. A unique arrangement coordinated by border officials and community organizations. It's one of the few places along the 1,900-mile southern border designed specifically for cross-border communication, even without crossing. It's a reminder that not all border features are about enforcement. Some are about coordination. And while some parts of the border try to bring people together, others slice the land apart like a scar. Part 4. The US-Canada border has a no man's land. It's called the Slash, a 6-meter-wide strip of emptiness that cuts through forests, mountains, and farmlands for over 1,300 miles. It wasn't made by nature. It was carved by surveyors, deliberately cleared to mark the border between the US and Canada. No buildings, no trees, just a raw line through the wilderness. It's maintained to this day, patrolled, monitored, and strictly enforced. Cross it at the wrong point, and you've illegally entered another country without even realizing it. There are no signs, no toll booths, and no flashing lights. This is a quiet reminder that even the friendliest borders still come with invisible fences. The Slash divides, but some places, they mix everything up. Part 3. The border city that blends 3 regions, 2 countries, and one wild map. At first glance, it looks like one big city. From the air, it's just lights, roads, and rooftops stretching endlessly across the desert. But on foot, each block tells a different story. Different laws, languages, and flags. Welcome to the Paseo del Norte region, where 3 places collide: El Paso, Texas, Sunland Park, New Mexico, and Ciudad de Juarez, Chihuahua. They sit side by side, separated by fences, custom checkpoints, and invisible lines of sovereignty. Locals joke that you can walk a block and need 3 IDs, 2 SIM cards, and a strong sense of direction. It's not a glitch in the map. It's a glimpse into what happens when borders are political. But sometimes, borders don't happen above ground. They're carved in silence deep below our feet. Part 2. The secret border tunnel discovered by accident. In 2020 near Yuma, Arizona, US agents made a discovery that left even the experts stunned. Beneath the desert, they found a tunnel unlike any they'd seen before. It stretched over 1,300 feet long, fully equipped with ventilation, lighting, and rail tracks. One end started in Mexico. The other emerged near an unfinished industrial site in the US. To this day, no one knows who built it or why they walked away. And while some try to sneak across unseen, others ride right through. No hiding, no stopping. Part 1. The train that crosses the border without stopping. There's a train that leaves New York City in the morning and arrives in Toronto by nightfall. It's called the Amtrak Maple Leaf, and somewhere along the journey, you cross an international border without ever leaving your seat. Instead, border agents quietly board the train at Niagara Falls, walking car to car, checking passports as the countryside rolls by. It's one of the rare border crossings where the border kind of feels like part of the view. You move between nations while sipping coffee and watching waterfalls through the window. Because sometimes a border isn't a wall, it's just a line in the landscape that lets you keep going. So that's it. Which of the border facts blew your mind the most? If even one of these stories made you see borders differently, hit that like button so we know you want more. Subscribe and don't miss the next video, where we uncover more mind-blowing geography. Because sometimes, the most fascinating stories live right on the edge.